have been evacuated for the day as well as part of the precaution. Still, no claim of responsibility by any one group. The only visible signs of celebration have been on the West Bank. The Palestinian people, who believe that the United States and Israel are one, have been cheering and handing out candy and celebrating, while their leaders have been condemning this attack. NBC's David Bloom is in Midtown Manhattan now with a view over the city skyline. And David, it is still stunning for those of us who live here to look behind you and not see the Twin Trade Towers.
Well, Tom, it is a horrific scene behind me looking from Midtown Manhattan to Lower Manhattan. And if anything, it's gotten more disheartening as the hours have passed. In this sense, the billowing cloud of smoke and debris that you see behind me is in fact growing. More smoke, more debris floating up into the air. The best estimates, Tom, that the New York Police Department is making at this hour in terms of casualties is only to say that they expect them to go into the thousands in terms of dead and injured. We know that the victims are being shipped to individual hospitals, not merely here in Manhattan, but in the entire tri-state area, in Connecticut, in New Jersey as well. One hospital, St. Vincent's in Greenwich Village, reports simply being overwhelmed with casualties. They say that they've put out an all-points bulletin for burn specialists and plastic surgeons. They need all the help they get, and it's no doubt all the hospitals do here in Manhattan. Here is the sequence of events starting with the first terrorist attack this morning. The first plane attacks the World Trade Center's South Tower at approximately 8:42 Eastern Time. Airline officials say at least 2 American Airlines flights and 2 United Airlines flights were hijacked today, and that the attack planes were the hijacked domestic flights. Roughly 21 minutes later, approximately 9:03 Eastern Time, the second large jetliner can be seen taking dead aim at the World Trade Center's North Tower. Emergency officials estimate 20,000 or more people may have been inside the 2 110-story buildings at the time of the attacks. Eyewitnesses report victims falling and in some cases jumping from the 2 buildings. At approximately 9:40 a.m. in Washington, D.C., a third hijacked plane crashes into the Pentagon in a burst of flames, one side of the building collapsing. Non-essential personnel from federal buildings, including the White House and the U.S. Capitol, are evacuated. 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. An unknown number of people still trapped inside. 1/2 hour later, at approximately 10:28 a.m., the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. Rubble, debris spreading for blocks. In a separate but apparently related crash, a fourth hijacked plane, a Boeing 767, crashes in western Pennsylvania, about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. The FAA closes all domestic airports, shutting down all U.S. airspace. At this hour, airline and FAA officials believe the 4 hijacked planes include American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767, bound from Boston to Los Angeles with 90 passengers and crew aboard, crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. American Airlines Flight 77, bound from Washington Dulles to LAX with 64 passengers and crew, believed to have been the plane, crashed into the Pentagon. United Airlines Flight 175, bound from Boston to Los Angeles with 65 people on board. By early accounts, the plane which crashed into the World Trade Center's North Tower. And finally, United Airlines Flight 93, the Boeing 757, which crashed in western Pennsylvania, carrying 45 passengers and crew. As to who might be responsible for this series of terrorist attacks, as you mentioned, Tom, has yet no claim of responsibility, but we certainly can tell you what senior U.S. intelligence officials, both in this administration and in the Clinton administration, are telling us, that the prime suspect is clearly the Saudi-born terrorist Osama bin Laden. One official told us that only he has the capability, the experience, and the motivation to carry out an attack like this. But again, that is just their initial speculation, finger-pointing. We clearly don't know at this hour who's responsible for this devastating and horrific attack.
Thank you very much, NBC's David Bloom. It goes without saying that whoever is responsibility, this is an act of war declared on the United States, a terrorist act of war, unprecedented in our nation's history. The United States was attacked, of course, 60 years ago this year at Pearl Harbor. 2,400 people were killed. The Japanese military attacking an American military installation that got us involved in World War II. But this terrorist war, They used innocent Americans on commercial airliners to attack other innocent Americans, and they struck at the heart of our civilian life in New York City. And they've caused great psychological damage across the country as well, say nothing of their attack on the symbol of our military strength, that is the Pentagon. And they took innocent people to their deaths in Pittsburgh in the crash of that hijacked airliner as well. NBC's Rahema Ellis is down near the World Trade Center. Rahema?
Tom, I am 4 blocks from the World Trade Center. The sky is dark with thick black smoke. Apparently, there are still fires burning. Some of the emergency workers told me that they cannot get into the exact area of the World Trade Center to help people whom they fear are trapped in the rubble because the fires are still burning, in some instances, out of control. Just a few moments ago, and just only 2 blocks from here, we were at the NYU Downtown Hospital. It is the only emergency room in the lower portion of Manhattan. It was the place where the first victims from this blast were taken, and hospital officials tell us they have turned their cafeteria into a triage area. They have people lined, and they say victims are wall to wall with inside that cafeteria and all throughout the hospital. Everyone has been called into service to assist in this blast. I talked with a man who was able to walk out of the hospital. His name was Peter DeCerbo. He was on the 47th floor of the World Trade Tower, number 1. He said when the first explosion occurred, he said he felt the building shake. He became frightened, as did all of his co-workers, he said. They didn't know what to do. Finally, he said, and quickly, they started to run down the stairs, 47 flights. And he said he actually carried a woman on his shoulders down those 47 flights with him. Another man who was on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange had come out of the building and was standing. He looked up, and he literally saw the second tower of the World Trade Tower come crashing to the ground. He said he saw it coming down, and then he and hundreds of people around him started to run. When he got to a point of some near safety, the man, who's 37 years old, said he dropped to his knees and he started to pray because he thought that he was going to be dead. As one emergency worker said to me, he said, "Do you know what day this is?" And I said, "It's September 11th. He said, "Yes, it's 911. And all of New York right now is in a state of 911. Tom?
All right, thank you very much. NBC's Rahema Ellis with a vivid account of what has been going on down there. We should also point out that we're getting a number of...
This is a News 4 special report.
New York, of course, the financial center of this great country. Washington, D.C., the seat of government, and both of us have been hit today by terrorist attacks.
Mayor Tony Williams has declared a state of emergency in the district. We go live now to Jackie Benson on Freedom Plaza with the latest on what's happening in our city. Jackie?
We're going to show you what it looks like. We're on East Street, show you 14th Street down there, a sight you will see all over downtown. Not today, a D.C. police car blocking traffic from going any closer to the White House. D.C. Mayor Anthony Williams spoke just a few moments ago at the Reeves Center in Northwest Washington. Here is some of what he had to say.
Our first priority is to be able to respond effectively to the emergency situations as they arise. To that end, and to ensure that we have the highest level of preparedness, I have declared a state of emergency in the District of Columbia so that emergency vehicles can move throughout our neighborhoods and so that in the event of an incident here in the district, we are fully prepared. I'm also communicating regularly with the White House and have the full support of our federal emergency agencies as well as the cooperation of the D.C. National Guard. I'd like to ask our citizens to remain calm and to work with us to get vehicles off the street as quickly as possible. Unless you are emergency personnel, medical and public safety professionals, unless you have some specific business of picking your kids up from school or the like, please stay at home. We're also...
Now, the state of emergency gives the mayor the authority to mobilize the D.C. National Guard, as you heard him say. It also allows him to request citizens, as he has done so, to stay indoors if possible and to curtail all non-essential trips. It also allows him to deputize special police to direct traffic at various intersections throughout the city because obviously D.C. police do not have enough officers to put someone in every corner. Now, the mayor was asked, would what's happening here today affect the upcoming IMF summit, the trouble and the massive police mobilization that was expected at that time. He said he is in the process of consulting with city attorneys to approach the federal government to see if they might possibly consider canceling or postponing that upcoming International Monetary Fund and World Bank meeting later this September. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Jackie Benson.
Thank you.
The nerve center of our nation's military, of course, is the Pentagon, and it was also a target of the terrorist attack today. There have been casualties from the attack on the Pentagon. Sarah Lee joins us now from Virginia Hospital Center in Arlington. Sarah?
Good afternoon, Jim. I'm standing here outside the emergency room where, as you can see, I'll step out of the way of the camera in just a moment. You can see the medical personnel is poised and ready for more patients to be coming in here. This is a place where I guess the walking wounded have been coming in, as it's very close to the Pentagon. We're told that there are about 26 people here being treated at this time, ranging from minor injuries to somewhat critical. These are all, I'm told, Pentagon employees, military as well as civilian. I'm going to just step out of the camera here so you can take a look at all the